You are watching New York Giants Now by Chat Sports. We got a mailbag coming up in today's video on the channel. This aired from our live show, which goes down every single Monday. And we didn't get to your question. There's an easy two-step process to guarantee your question gets answered. Number one, you got to be a subscriber. So go down right now and hit that big red sub button, or you can super chat, which like my guy Breezy Mike did. Shout out to Breezy. What up, man? Level of concern with the center position from 1 to 10. This is a good question, Breezy, and we appreciate you supporting the channel. I'm at about a 7, to be honest with you. You don't really have a starting center on this roster. Think about the guys that played center last year. John Feliciano signed a 1-year, really $2.5 million deal with the San Francisco 49ers. While John Feliciano wasn't that good of a player, he was a steady player that didn't miss time and knew the scheme and the philosophy of this football team. He played with the Buffalo Bills prior to coming to the New York Giants, so he had a relationship with Brian Dable as well as with the offensive line coach, Bobby Johnson, that came over from Buffalo. So you don't have him anymore. Nick Gates signed with your arch rival, the Washington football team, a.k.a. the Commanders. So you're out of a starting center right now. And right now, the guy that would start at center if the season started today was Ben Bredeson, which is a guy that's had a lot of injury history in the past. I'd like for the Giants to take a center probably in one of the first 2 rounds, maybe round 3 at the latest. But I'd say a 7 at minimum, Breezy, because we don't really have a starting center on this roster. Michael, my man, with a $10 super chat. Mike, we appreciate it. OBJ or Hopkins? Whew, it's a good question. So the way I would unpack this is, what do I have to give up for both? For Hopkins, you're going to have to give up draft ammunition and a lot of money on the salary cap. Probably going to have to give him a new contract. OBJ, all you're going to have to give up is some money. So for that reason alone, I'd probably say OBJ. I'd probably flipped back and forth on this 100 times. I think Hopkins is a better player right now. I think he's more healthy, and I think he's more reliable. But you're going to have to give up a 3rd-round pick and $25 million on the salary cap for Hopkins, whereas for OBJ, you don't have to give up a pick. Probably only going to have to give up $5 million in guaranteed money. I don't know. I'll raise it up to the audience. Who would you rather have, OBJ or Hopkins? Type OBJ if you want OBJ on the team, or DH for DeAndre Hopkins. Sound off for me down below. We got a comment coming in from a burner account. Wow, I feel like I made it in this world. Marshall Green's burner account. With the Giants needing another edge rusher, could they look at a vet like Bud Dupree or Justin Houston? Wow. That's a good question, Marshall. Yeah, I do think the Giants could look at the veteran defensive end and pass rusher market, because when you talk about what the Giants have on this team right now, they need another edge rusher. You talk about Kayvon Thibodeau. You talk about Azeez Ojulari, 2 really good young players that I think have a lot of high upside that still aren't even close to scratching the surface of the type of players that they can be. But let's be honest. Azeez Ojulari has had injury issues. Kayvon Thibodeau had injury issues in college. He sprained his MCL earlier in the year. And you don't really have a backup edge rusher. I like Tommen Fox, but he's UDFA, and he's coming into a sophomore campaign. Ryder Anderson, Ellerson Smith, you don't have a proven edge rusher. So he asked about Bud Dupree and Justin Houston. Let's break those guys down. Bud Dupree is a guy that has all the talent in the world. His best season most recently is back in 2019 when he played 16 games with the Pittsburgh Steelers and had 11.5 sacks, 16 tackles for loss. But since then, he hasn't played more than 11 games in a season. But even in 33 games, the guy has 17 sacks. So in the last 33 games, 15 sacks, 8 sacks, 3 sacks, 4 sacks in the last 3 seasons, is a guy that has stayed in the last 33 games, a little bit older, but he's continued to produce. Justin Houston in his NFL career. When you look at 2019, he had 11 sacks that year. 2020, he had 8 sacks. 2021, he had 4.5. But this last year with Baltimore, he was really damn good. In 14 games, he had 9.5 sacks. So I'd honestly be cool with either one of these guys. I think you need another edge rusher that could produce a little bit of juice off the edge. And Justin Houston is a guy, as well as is Bud Dupree, that they'll still think has a little bit they can bring to this game. I think he could be they could be older mentors to these young guys like Kayvon Thibodeau and Azeez Ojulari. But if you only had one of these guys to sign, which one would you roll with, Giants fans? Let me know. I want the real ones to sound off. Be the GM, take the seat of Joe Schoen. I am anticipating both these guys to sign cheap veteran minimum deals, maybe a little bit more than that. But what do you think? Type BD for Bud Dupree or Justin Houston? Type JH. Let me know what you think down in the comment section. Bill, my man Bill with a $5 super chat. Bill, we appreciate that. So Marsh, hasn't been discussed yet, but what the heck are we doing with the O-line? New wide receivers can't catch a ball if DJ's on the ground and can't throw it. Great point, Bill. That's an absolutely great point. I'm expecting for the Giants to address their O-line in the NFL draft because, look, you lost John Feliciano in free agency. You lost Nick Gates in free agency. Your left guard last year was Ben Bredesen. It was kind of a turnstile at that position, whichever guy was healthy. But go back to last year's draft, Bill, in 2022. You drafted Joshua Azudu with a top 100 pick in the NFL draft out of North Carolina. You need him to be a starter on this team. You pick some guy in the top 100 of the NFL draft, he's got to be a starter. I think Joshua Azudu is going to be your starting left guard this year. You're expecting for your right tackle, Evan Neal, who was the 7th pick in the 2022 NFL draft, to take a leap and get better. And he has to be, or he'll be a guard in 2024. You're hoping that Mark Lewinsky gets better at his spot and gets better in year 2. So you have Andrew Thomas is going to continue to be great. You got Joshua Azudu, a top 100 pick in year 2, starting. Question mark at center. I think that'll be a guy that you draft in the top 3 round. And you got Mark Lewinsky at your right guard. You hope he gets better in year 2. He was solid, but second year in the system, hopefully he takes another leap. And hopefully Evan Neal shows you why he was a top 10 and the second overall tackle selected in the draft. I think the draft will be a spot where they continue to upgrade the offensive line, Bill, but I would not be surprised if they signed a veteran center in NFL free agency, maybe a guy like Ben Powers, that's his name? Ben Jones, or maybe Connor McGovern in NFL free agency. Look, I do know this, guys. If the Giants make a move, we're going to make a video here on the channel. So subscribe to the channel. Go down right now, hit that big red sub button, and make sure to turn on your notifications. That way, you get alerted whenever we put out a video, and you never miss a move that the New York Football Giants make. Hit the bell icon and the red sub button underneath the show. MFJ, my man, what position would you pick now with the first round pick this year as of now? Mike, we appreciate that. Honestly, Mike, I'm either going center, wide receiver, or corner. And that's where I stand right now. But I also know that when you're drafting, you want to go by best player available. And that is what Joe Schoen has talked about so well and long about since he's taken over at the general manager spot for Big Blue. But when I think about 3 guys that stand out to me as who I would love to have at pick number 25, I rely on these 3 guys. I think Jackson Smith-Njigba is the best wide receiver in the draft. If he's available at 25, I will personally run the draft card up to Roger Goodell to select him. Brian Branch is a guy that I'm also really, really starting to fall in love with as I continue to watch their tape. And I think the Giants have a need at what he brings. He could play in the slot. He could play free safety. He could play strong safety. He can even slide out to outside corner if he need be. I like Brian Branch and the versatility he brings. And I think him and a Wink Martindale defense could be absolutely electric. And if Jackson Smith-Njigba's not there, Jordan Addison is my wide receiver 2, and I have Zay Flowers right behind him as wide receiver 3. 2 centers that I really like a lot that I don't know if you want to reach at 25 for them are Luke Weipler as well as John Michael Schmitz. Those are 2 centers that I'm a big fan of. But these are the top 3 guys that I'm looking for at pick number 25. What's going to be awesome is if one of those 3 guys is wearing one of these brand new NFL draft hats. The NFL just launched their 2023 hat collection for the NFL draft, and you can get your Giants 2023 draft hat right here. Go to chatsports.com/NYG draft hat. That's chatsports.com/NYG draft hat. You saw the gray one, a little bit of creme de la creme color in that one. They got the blue one. They got the flat bill. They got it fitted. They got it non-fitted. Or you can get this one with the curved brim. Get your hat and rep the Giants at the draft coming up, which is less than a month away. Chatsports.com/NYG draft hat. Fernando, what up, brother? I am in on OBJ for the right price. He has a crazy work ethic. You combine that with the same prove-it type deals we picked already, bunch of hungry dogs. Fernando, a wise man once told me hungry dogs run faster, and I believe that applies to Odell Beckham Jr. I think that he knows, and he's a really smart guy, and he's really aware. He knows that this is his last stint in the NFL if it doesn't shake out right for him. And I believe, one, he's going to be on his best behavior, which is kind of ridiculous, honestly, that you have to say that about an NFL player. But I think that kind of gets overblown with OBJ. Talk about the teammates he's played with. They say they all love him. I agree, Fernando. If you can get him on the right price with the work ethic and the dog mentality he has with a chip on his shoulder, I think it only bodes well for the New York Giants. Fernando, thank you for the super chat, my man. Michael back again with a $10 super chat. Mike, thank you so much, my guy. Love the channel. 3 questions tonight. You do not apologize at all. Would you like Sewell round 3 or 4 to fight for a starting spot, or does he not fit Wink's scheme? I like Sewell, but I think he's a little bit slow laterally, and he's not the best sideline-to-sideline linebacker. And I think that the Giants could look to the 3rd or 4th round, and I'm not out on Sewell, but there's some other guys that I like a little bit better than him, but I wouldn't be mad if the Giants brought in a mid-round linebacker to compete because they could use some more competition at that position. You just signed Bobby Okereke, who I believe is a top 10, top 15 inside linebacker in the National Football League. You brought back Jared Davis. I know him as Gerard Davis, and people are telling me it's Jared Davis. I've heard it both ways. Came out of Florida, was a first-round pick, played the last couple of games with the Giants. I'm interested to see how Darian Beavers plays this year for New York. I thought he played really well in the preseason before tearing his ACL. I wouldn't be mad if they drafted Sewell, Michael, but I don't know if I want to use one of my early premium picks at a position. We already have a starter that's a premium player. My 3 biggest needs are corner, receiver, and interior offensive line center. I'd like to see those get shored up before we go with a depth piece at linebacker. But look, if Sewell's on the board and he's high on your board, pull the trig. DJ breakout season. I think the Giants could sign Deion Jones for cheap. One linebacker question to another. Sure, I think they could, right? But how cheap is he going to come? And is he a guy that's still motivated to be elite in the NFL? At one point, Deion Jones was the best linebacker in the league. And when you look at the Giants linebacker depth chart, there's really only one certified pro on this list. Bobby Okereke is one of the best in the NFL. Jared Davis has had his moments, but there was a reason that he was added to a roster and signed off a practice squad in Week 17. Carter Coughlin has some potential. I don't see him being an every down inside linebacker. Darian Beavers, I think, has some potential there, but we haven't seen it. He's just potential. Cam Brown is really a special team specialist, and Micah McFadden has some juice, but he doesn't have the reps. So what about a veteran like Deion Jones, who a guy back in 2019, 2020, and 2021 had over 100 tackles and 9 tackles for loss and 11 tackles for loss and 8 tackles for loss. And he's shown the ability to get after the passer as well. In the last 3 seasons, the guy has 9 sacks. I like Deion Jones. How much is he going to cost? How much is it going to cost to sign him? Can you get him for a 1-year, $2 million deal? If that's the case, that's going to bring some speed to this defense. He can play next to Bobby Okereke, and you're bringing in a guy that has over 300 tackles from 2019 to 2021. He's a tackling machine, and he likes to play at the line of scrimmage. I'd be in on bringing Deion Jones in. What do you think? Should the Giants sign Deion Jones? He was one of the guys I was interested in prior to free agency, and the fact that he's not signed to a team makes me feel like that you get him for pretty cheap. I think he's still a damn good football player. What do you think? Should the Giants sign Deion Jones? Why for yes and for no? We appreciate everybody for tuning in to today's show. Been a lot of fun here on this mailbag. Love chopping it up with you guys and answering your questions. If I didn't get to your question today, hit me up on Twitter and send me a DM. We could chop it up over there at @MarshallGreen_. And let's go Giants.